When working with images inside of Illustrator, it's not uncommon to want to perform a crop on one of those images. I'm going to show you a technique in this movie that gives you similar functionality. It's called a clipping mask. I'm working with a document called Healy.ai, which is available inside the exercise files that you downloaded from the site. Before we do anything, the first thing that I want you to do is come up to the View menu, and from the View menu, you can choose Show Edges. If you see a Hide Edges command, you're all set. You don't have to do anything. But in my case, I need to choose this option. Command H or Control H would be the keyboard shortcut. Once you show the edges, what I'd like you to do is press the V key on the keyboard to ensure that you have the selection tool highlighted. Then I want you to click on the picture. When you do, you'll notice that there's a mask button that appears inside the control panel. If you click it, you'll successfully create a clipping mask. So you'll also notice that once you do that, there's two buttons that become active within this control panel. One that allows you to edit the clipping path, another that allows you to edit the contents of the mask. In this case, what I want to do is edit the clipping path, and in order for us to do that, I want you to choose the Direct Selection tool. A is the keyboard shortcut, and the first thing that I want you to do is click on the anchor point in the top left-hand corner. You'll know that that anchor point is selected because it will be blue. The others will be white. If you hold down the Shift key, you can also click on the anchor point in the top right-hand corner. With both of those anchor points selected, you can use the down arrow key on your keyboard to move them down. If you hold down the Shift key, you'll move them in larger increments. And you'll notice that it looks like you're cropping the image. You can continue to crop the image. Let's say, for example, we wanted to remove a portion of the image over here on the right. Go ahead and click away from the image to deselect it, then click on the anchor point in the top right-hand corner, hold down the Shift key and click on the anchor point in the bottom right corner, then use the left arrow key on the keyboard. Now, what's great about a clipping path is all of the image's information is still there, so if you wanted to adjust or tweak the crop, you have that ability. In fact, if you highlight the Selection tool, again, V is the keyboard shortcut, and you click on the image, you can come over and click this second button, which is Edit Contents. At that point, you can click and drag and move the image around, and that clipping path really acts as a window, allowing you to see the image inside of it, but everything outside of it is hidden. You can even use the arrow keys on your keyboard to nudge it around. So if you do create a clipping path, you always have the ability to come over and modify it. Now, you may run into situations that you decide that you really don't want that crop or that mask to be taking place anymore. Well, you can release the clipping path. To do that, you need to make sure that you have this first button selected in the control panel, the Edit Clipping Path button. And if that's the case, all you need to do is come up to the Object menu, and from there, you can choose Clipping Mask, and then you can go ahead and choose Release. Once you release it, you'll notice you see the entire image again. It's probably a good idea, though, to get rid of that path that you created. If you see it, you can select it and delete it, but if you don't see it, all you have to do is come over to the Layers panel, and inside the Layers panel, if you expand Layer 1 in this case, you'll see that path. If you select that layer, you can come down and click the trash can to remove it. So a clipping path or a clipping mask gives you the ability to essentially crop an image inside of Illustrator. There is a more powerful solution, however. If you really want fine control over the crop that you create, you can use something called an opacity mask. Let's go ahead and take a look at how we can work with this now. What I'd like you to do is come over and choose one of your shape drawing tools. I'm going to choose the Ellipse tool. And in this case, I don't want a stroke color, and I'm going to use a white fill color. By using a white fill color, we'll be able to see all of the contents within the shape. If you use black, it will be completely invisible. And then, of course, there's the shades of gray that you can use. We'll look at that in a little bit. But for right now, let's just go ahead and create a white circle on top of this car. And it doesn't have to be a bitmap behind this, by the way. It could be a piece of vector artwork. Once you draw the circle, what I'd like you to do is press the V key on your keyboard, hold down the Shift key, and select the car behind it as well. So you have both of these objects selected. With both of these objects selected, you need to open up the Transparency panel. If you don't see it over here on the right, you can always come over to the Window menu, and from there, you can choose Transparency. Nevertheless, inside the transparency panel, you want to make sure it's expanded. It should be, but if yours looks like this, go ahead and click these little arrows here to expand it completely. And what I want you to do is click the Make Mask button. When you do that, you'll see the car on the left and the mask on the right. Now you can manipulate these individually if you deselect this little chain link button. When you click that, you'll then have the ability to select the car here on the left and move the car around. And you'll notice now the car is being repositioned within this mask. Likewise, if you come over and click on the actual mask, you can manipulate that. So if you wanted to change the scale or the shape, you would have that ability. In this case, what I'd like to do is release this mask by clicking the Release button. And instead of using a white fill color here, I'm going to change this to a gradient. So if we come over to the fill swatch, go ahead and select a gradient. I'm going to go with this white to black linear gradient. I think that'll work fine. And then again, you can select both objects and you can make the mask again. When you make the mask, you want to make sure that the clip option is selected, which it should be by default. But here you can control the opacity of the overall effect. We'll leave it set to 100%. You can also control the blend mode. If you had content underneath it, you could control how this artwork interacts with the artwork below it. So there's a lot more flexibility when creating crops inside of Illustrator by using an opacity mask.